Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially entered the Twilight Zone. Absolute lunacy out there right now with pricing just across the board. I mean, prices are going up all over the place. It's weird to think back 4 or 5 years as to how much things cost to where they are now. However, when we just kind of whittle it down to gaming, this is very strange stuff because we're used to prices for consoles going down after 3 or 4 years of them being on the market. But now we find ourselves in year 8 for the Nintendo Switch. And it's actually going up in price, which sounds like lunacy. But that's what we're going to look at here today because Nintendo pushed out a pricing update and one that has people going back and forth all over the internet right now. And we're going to break down what's happening here and why, yes, this could end up becoming a thing where the Switch 2 itself also jumps in price. So if you guys enjoy these videos, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. I thought the weekend was going to be here and it would be a little quieter for news and then just kind of roll into a nice Saturday. Nope. Friday has been all over the place so far. So I we'll see if there's another video for today, but I think this is going to be it. And then tomorrow I got all kinds of stuff for the financials of Nintendo, which sort of plays into this a little bit. But this is a big thing right now, guys, because this was posted over on Nintendo's website, okay? Nintendo Switch pricing update. They say pricing for the original Nintendo Switch family of systems and products will change in the United States based on market conditions, effective August 3rd, 2025. So we'll see that Sunday, basically, right? Before we open for retail and stuff starting Monday, new week and stuff there, sure, but August 3rd on Sunday. These include Nintendo Switch OLED model, Nintendo Switch Lite, and select Nintendo Switch accessories. Other Nintendo products, including certain Nintendo Switch 2 accessories, select amiibo, and the Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo will see adjustments over. Alarmo's going up in price. You might as well call it for Nintendo at this now. The pricing for the Switch 2 system, physical and digital Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 games, as well as Nintendo Switch Online memberships will remain unchanged at this time. However, please note that price adjustments may be necessary in the future. They have not, at this time, officially shared how much that price increase is going to be. In fact, I mean, if you look at it, they say the pricing is going to change. That technically could mean, I get it, why people are saying, oh, it could mean it's going down. No, it's going. Have you ever read this before? Like any of these things? Because all the companies, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, have put out statements using the term current market or market conditions. Have you ever read that and then thought, oh, wow, this is good news? No, it's always prices are going up. So yeah, you're going to see prices increase for the system that's 8 years now into its generation, which sounds absurd, right? Well, pricing details started to get out there because lo and behold, Target decided, we're not going to wait till Sunday. We're just going to start throwing up these prices immediately. And because some sites will track based on APIs and stuff like the back end of these websites, those, like I think Deku Deals is one, they started to update pricing as well automatically almost. So it got out there, people saw it, and we have an idea as to the price increases we're looking at. Okay, so this was, here's Wario 64. Just kind of comparing them here. So the Switch OLED, $350 to $400, $50 increase there. And yes, I know what you're thinking. That's awfully close to the Switch 2 price. It's $50 off, yeah. Hard to recommend that one when $50 more gets you to the Switch 2. And hey, maybe there's a psychological element there from Nintendo's perspective, but we'll get to that in a minute with some of the reasoning, of course, that people are kicking back and forth over all of this. The non-OLED model, though, going from $300 to $340. The Switch Lite from $200 to $230. Alarmo, $10 increase. It's over. That's it. The Joy-Con 2 controllers, by the way, $100 now. Well, on the 3rd. It's so weird to think that the controller, like the one that come by default with the Switch 2, $100 for a pair of Joy-Cons. Wow. I remember when in 2017, when we first got word that those Joy-Cons were $80, I mean, it was chaos. Now we're looking at $100 pair of Joy-Cons for the Switch 2. And it's like the worst way to play the thing docked, really. I mean, you don't really have many options in handheld mode, I get it. But docked, it's like you get the Pro Controller. However, the Pro Controller is most likely going up in price because we also have seen so far a listing for the Switch 1 Pro Controller going to $80. Is getting quite expensive out there for gaming at this time. But the idea around this, naturally, people are going, okay, market conditions. What happened today that may have caused this? Now, about a month ago, we heard that Canada was going to see a price increase as well for the last generation system with the Switch 1. And that was weird. That threw everyone off. It's like, the Switch 1? Why that system? Well, the thing that a lot of people are pointing to, because it does line up naturally, would be tariffs. And right now, the countries that Nintendo is most reliant on for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 manufacturing would be Japan, Vietnam, and China. China has gone back and forth with the US just kind of on their own terms, their own deals. That's sitting at about 30% tariffs, my understanding. However, if you look over on the White House website, we can search through and look to see how things are, say, for Japan with 15%. These would be, as they have up here, reciprocal tariffs. So that's a 15%. Vietnam, though, which was kind of this out for Nintendo as to trying to figure out how to get around some of this stuff, 20%. Okay. That, and then China, which I know their accessories and like some amiibo stuff, things like that do come out of China still. So those are definitely going up in price there. But you look at this and it's, okay, 20% and then even a 15% for Japan, like shaving of the margin, if you will, with tariffs. That can put a company like Nintendo in a precarious situation, because as much, I'm sure, as we all would go, hey, they should eat the cost. That would make sense. They're trying to sell stuff to get people on board. Well, they're not in a user acquisition phase for the Switch 1 any longer. Like, that's pretty clear. That system has sold as much as it's going to, for the most part. You're still going to sell some, as we've seen in their financial results that, again, I think I'll go over tomorrow, because there is some very interesting information in there. But they sold less than 1 million systems last quarter for the Switch 1. We're kind of through that now, so it's weird that they go, hey, it's $400 for the Switch OLED, but maybe in their mind, they're thinking, hey, you know, this actually makes the Switch 2 look a little cheaper, doesn't it? It's, oh man, why would I buy that Switch OLED if I can spend $50 more and get the Switch 2? So the thing I come back to with this, however, and look, the reason you're seeing increases on accessories, because they've already done this, keep that in mind. When the Switch 2, the pre-orders were going to go live, remember there's a whole thing about them pulling the Switch 2 pre-orders back, and they were like, hey, we have to evaluate market conditions and stuff. Love that word, sure. But they were looking at it like, hey, can we, instead of raise the price on the Switch 2, can we take it and spread it out across all these different accessories, raise those by $5 to $10, so it's not like, hey, the Switch 2 is $500 or $550. How can we mitigate the loss here, or the added cost, by spreading it out with these different accessories? That's what they're doing here again. That's the accessories going up because they're doing that thing again here. Very similar. I'm a little surprised they haven't opted to raise, because this is another thing they can do, and I think they will do it before a Switch 2 price increase. I'm surprised they haven't raised the subscription cost for NSO. They're really sticking firm right now at that, what is it, $50 a year for the expansion pack tier, or $20 a year for the basic. It doesn't seem like they want to move away from that or move up from that yet, which, good. I'd prefer it to stay there, or I still think we should get to the point where just online play is free and you have a library of games that you can subscribe to if you want that, because the content, I think, is worth it on its own. But we get rid of that's a whole other discussion, sure. But that is another avenue I could see them going down before the Switch 2 goes up in price. Now, why did they not just raise the Switch 2 price? To be honest, it's because they're still in the user acquisition phase. Like that, they will be in the user acquisition phase for, I think, minimum the first 2 years. And what that means is they're trying to do whatever they can to keep the price within a reasonable range that they have deemed fit for the market, which $450 is actually on the cheaper end now. I mean, look at what we're seeing with the PC handheld market. I mean, it's getting out of control. I saw one go up today. It looks cool. It's like the dual screen handheld from I think Ayaneo, and I see it as, oh yeah, it's over $1,000 Okay. It was cool to look at. It's just kind of the thought process there. But we're seeing this more and more frequently where the PC gaming handheld space is like $1,000 for some of these things. So in that sense of, hey, this is a way to play some of these bigger games like a Cyberpunk on the go, you go, hey, $450, that's not bad for the market that it's sitting in right now. Those are the comparables we have, the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, that kind of stuff. So in a sense, Nintendo has figured out a spot for it, but they need to get more and more people on board. And the way to make that more and more difficult is to raise the price and that barrier of entry. And look, this isn't exclusive to Nintendo. It's a common practice for these companies for the longest time. Lose money on the hardware initially, and then make it up on the back end with the software. Nintendo, though, likes to make money on hardware day one if they can. But I will tell you now, from what we're seeing with the margins continuing to slim more and more, I would be surprised if they're making any kind of money on the Switch 2 in the US. Like, I have a feeling they're either at break even or even losing a little bit of money. And that's one of the reasons that, yes, they are preparing people, will say, in this statement where they mention that, hey, pricing for the Switch 2 and physical and digital games and all this stuff, it might have to go up in the future. It might be necessary. You might say, why digital games? Again, they would work to spread out the cost across all these different avenues so it isn't a $100 price increase or something like that. And again, I'd love for the companies to eat the price on all this stuff, but I feel like I've explained it well. And if you've been coming to this channel long enough, you know how I view a lot of these companies, and generally I view them as acting in the interest of the bottom line all the time. So that's one of the reasons I'm not surprised when they go, hey, prices have to go up because we're not going to eat the cost. It's like, yeah, they are a corporate entity who exists to make money. Yeah, that's kind of it. So that's why I'm not necessarily caught by surprise as much. This one, though, because it's the Switch One, is a little weird. But that's the times we're in right now are just strange. I thought, someday maybe I will have to be that old person in the room who's talking to the grandkids like, oh, back in my day, the controllers were wired. We used to have to put a disc into the system or a cartridge to play our games, and prices would go down over time. Like, we would end up with a much cheaper system by the end of it. We can already do that, which again is absolutely insane. But that's just where we are now. So I guess look towards August 3rd for Nintendo to issue the official price sheet for all of this stuff. And I expect like the Switch 2 Pro controller and just about every other accessory to go up. And man, those amiibos were already expensive. And like we were seeing $40 amiibos. I'm trying to figure out, are we about to see $50 amiibos? The days when they're like 15 or 20 bucks, man, that was like 4 years ago. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments, with Nintendo raising price of the Switch 1 system, currently leaving the Switch 2 alone, but for how long? I guess we'll find out as we get towards the holidays and then into 2026. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.